So a big welcome to everyone to the Prolific North Top 75 Tech and E-Commerce Companies event 2020. By all accounts, you can hear me loud and relatively clear, so that's a good start. Long may that continue. Now, this event is the latest in our series of research-led initiatives where we look to bring some order to our sector, to champion the success of our sector and draw some insight from the results that each one reveals. I remember at last year's Top 75 Tech reveal, we were actually swilling Prosecco and eating grass-fed beef at the Manchester Hall. So I think it's fair to say this year's a more restrained affair, but at least the bus fare home is cheaper, that's for sure. Now I must start by thanking our sponsors of both this webinar event and the whole Top 75 list itself. They've been great supporters of it, and that's Bruntwood SciTech, who I've been privileged to learn a bit more about in recent weeks, and the incredible science and tech innovation they're cultivating at Manchester Science Park, Alderley Park, and the platform hub in Leeds. And thanks once again to our regular partners, Mustard, who ensure that this and all our research initiatives are so rigorously undertaken. Now, later on, we will be counting down the top 20 tech and e-commerce companies, as well as picking out some of the high climbers and other companies to look out for a bit further down the list. This is a sneak preview of the full 75, which will be published on Prolific North tomorrow morning. That's all ready to go. But before then, I want to introduce our guests today, who are going to be taking part in our fireside chat, giving us an insight into how their very different businesses have handled the challenge of this year, the challenge of coronavirus. First up, we're very pleased to have Michael Brennan, who can perhaps raise your hand there, Michael. And he's the co-founder and CEO of Tootoot, an award-winning safeguarding app, who launched his latest product on the day lockdown was announced in March. Good timing there, Michael. He'll be giving us some insight from a startup perspective. We also have Gabriel Dooris, head of enterprise new business at TalkTalk, who can provide an insight into how a 1.6 billion turnover company has handled the crisis. And we're also very pleased to be joined by Tom Renn, managing director at Bruntwood SciTech, Manchester. So hi, Tom, and hi, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us and for giving us your time today. And before we go any further, I would like to just ask Tom to say a few words. Tom.
Thanks, David, and hi, everyone. As David already said, it's a pleasure to join you for the Top 75 Tech and E-Commerce reveal, albeit we're revealing the top 20. Yeah, shame to be doing it digitally, but we'll all come back stronger next year for the benefit of the science that's been let out around the world, developing the vaccines and hopefully giving us some sense of normality. Bruntwood SciTech, we're essentially the UK's largest provider of specialist workspace, labs, maker spaces for the science and technology sector. So we develop campuses and innovation districts around the country, but our work, as David said, really our most mature portfolio is in Manchester, around Circle Square, MSP and City Labs, where we host over 200 businesses, everything through from SMEs like Michael and Tootoot, all the way through to companies like Cisco or Kaigen that have a global reach and a long history. So we play a sort of supporting partner role, trying to help form these companies, scale them and grow them, and do that through a provision of business support services and access to funding and finance through venture networks and partners. So as I say, we're very pleased to be involved in the event today, and impressed as ever by the incredible companies that are forming part of that top 75. There's so much talent and so many amazing businesses that are emerging across the UK, but of course predominantly in the north. And yeah, I think it's a very exciting time for our sector, despite clearly a very challenging year that's affected us all in different ways. But the level of digital adoption this year should mean that every business joining us today has got huge opportunity for the future. So yeah, thanks David for having us, and look forward to the event.
Yeah, thanks Tom. And in the tradition of great introductions, I forgot to introduce myself. So yeah, I am David from Prolific North, editor of Prolific North, just in case anyone was worried about that. So let's crack on with finding out a bit more about how our respective businesses have handled this year. And yeah, perhaps Michael, I could just start with yourself, and yeah, tell us a bit more. Give us a bit more of a background to what you're doing, and yeah, and that day in March when you launched your latest product.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, David. So we have two products. We started off 6 years ago developing the world's first reporting platform and app to support children and young people to report mental health and well-being concerns directly to their school. And over the last 6 years, we've supported 600,000 children globally, over 500 schools around the UK and internationally. And we've been endorsed and supported by the Department for Education, which we're extremely proud of. So from that point of view, when lockdown was looming, the education world from a technology point of view became very exciting. And the need was realized extremely quickly, particularly in schools, colleges and universities, to provide children and young people with a voice, particularly when they couldn't do so face to face. But if we just roll back a couple of steps, we were invested in by Greater Manchester Combined Authority and the Growth Angels Business Hub in October, as we had a vision to say that if we could support children and young people to report their concerns, then what could we do to help organizations better understand the needs of their people? And we developed a platform called Stribe, which enables organizations to pulse out questions to their employees. It gives employees the ability to start a conversation with the HR team or their people leads, and it provides a resource hub in which employees can find the right information at the right time. Now, our ideal customer, as we started to think about this concept and secure that investment in October, was supporting large multi-generational organizations with potentially remote and isolated workforces in the multi-locations. We developed our platform, and credit to all of our team, we launched as planned from October on the 22nd of March, 2020. And suddenly 2 days later, we were in lockdown, which was an extremely interesting time. From the positive point of view, we were absolutely bang on with building a platform that helped organizations of all sizes to understand and support teams that were working remotely or isolated. But from a negative point of view, particularly when you develop a new platform, a lot of those early stage conversations and learnings are done in a very nurtured face-to-face environment, so that you can build those relationships and test and pilot that sort of platform when it's launched. So that provided quite an interesting time at that stage to say, we've got an existing business that we're supporting to grow and drive forward, but we've launched a new product. Do we pause that? Do we double down on that, or what do we do? So that brought a number of decisions to the table for a team of 14 individuals.
And what did you? What swung it in the end, Michael? What was your decision based on?
We decided to double down and continue to drive through this. We realized that what we had created resonated with what we thought the market was requiring. We have an incredible team, and internally we wanted to ensure that we were putting all of our resource and focusing that on one central point to drive through this element. And we had also secured some early customers right in the middle of lockdown 1. And for us, that was enough to say, well, hang on, if we can do this when the first pandemic and lockdown has happened, there's definitely an opportunity for us to continue to drive this forward.
Yeah, and Gabriel, then, so from the perspective, I suppose at the other end of the spectrum of a massive company, one that's relocated up north in recent years, 1.6 billion revenue, as I mentioned. I mean, to give us a bit of an insight into your experiences of the past few months.
Sure. I mean, so for us, I think that there's the two elements. There's the one where it's what you do as a business yourself, in terms of the safety of your team and all the employees, but equally, as a critical infrastructure, we've got to keep the business going and look after the customers as well. So I think the immediate change that we saw virtually overnight was a massive increase in the daytime usage of the network. People obviously going to work from home. So the challenge from a network point of view was very much, we had to upscale it by 30% very, very quickly, or it would have fell over. So there was a huge amount of networking guys around the country working to get the network fit and proper for what was effectively becoming a new way of working. So what that led to, we looked a lot around how else could we help businesses in terms of their new norm of working from home. And I think one of the biggest challenges people were facing, especially as children were off as well, in the summertime, was one broadband connection. Netflix is getting used, Xbox is getting used, TVs, downloading, streaming, and then for somebody to go from an office grade connection to trying to work from home on the same network, we recognised that it was a real challenge. So we launched a homeworker product, which was effectively a business connection into the home, which was completely separate, so that the businesses could use that purely for their access. Now, that's worked really well for people. But I think what we're starting to get to now is companies are actually starting to look and go, do you know what? We're not going to go back to the norm. We did quite a few surveys during lockdown, and for instance, over 50% of people have said they work more effectively at home and actually don't want to go back to the full office environment. And then from a senior leader point of view, over a third of them recognise that actually people work more collaboratively. A lot of the tools that people had already that they probably weren't using enough, Teams as an example, were being used much more effectively. So what we're now starting to find is companies are actually looking to say, well, okay, what are we going to do going forward? It's probably going to be a hybrid model across a lot of industries. People are realizing around things like work-life balance, that they're not doing an hour's commute or an hour and a half commute. They're having that time at home as well, which is helping. So, yeah, absolutely a real challenge. But in terms of what we have seen is a lot of areas, for instance, both in the enterprise space and the SME space, there's been a real change of the way people work, and therefore the type of products that we're having to give them for their new ways of working. So whether that be better connectivity, Wi-Fi services, that side of things. But really what we've seen ourselves as in this period of time really is just enabling people to get through COVID from a sort of technology point of view, really.
Yeah, thanks, Gabe. And Tom, similar sort of question to yourself, really. So, just give us a little bit of an insight into how you and the various businesses within Bruntwood SciTech, how you've sort of coped with the last few months, I guess. How's it been as a general overview?
I think it's been one of those where it's sort of been three camps, really. Sort of those that have significantly grown their business during the last 9 months, and we do have a number of them that have been extremely successful. Those that have kind of had to shelter in place, and some businesses of course have contracted. So we've seen across those 200 businesses in Manchester all different kinds of stories, and some rapidly adapting and pivoting in this crisis, whether that's kind of some of our life science companies who deliver diagnostic tests, typically around things like cystic fibrosis. They were quick and in developing their own COVID-19 tests. or whether it's been, companies like Wakelet, who are an edtech platform that saw, like Michael, massive opportunity for more significant market adoption, and have scaled significantly and seen it as a great opportunity to raise. So there's been interesting, different scenarios for all of those businesses. I think the common thread in picking up on Gabriel's point around kind of how people have worked, we've also been very much in mixed mode there. With, at Alderley Park, where life science lab infrastructure is just critical. You can't, set up those PCR machines pretty easily at home and in a controlled environment. We've had a huge number of people, still working in our campuses and still needing the support to make sure that they could deliver essentially to their customers, whether that's been through extended hours or 7 days a week working and rotational shift patterns. So we've seen just so much kind of enterprise and innovation really from all businesses. And I think, the standout thing is the resilience of companies and the resilience of the people that work for them and their commitment to really take the opportunity of this year. Whilst it has been bruising, so many businesses have reacted so positively to it. And the thing we take a lot of comfort from, of course, some businesses have really been hit with financial hardship. As yet, touch wood, there hasn't been any business on the science part that's had to sort of wind itself up in an orderly or unorderly fashion. And hopefully that means that there's great things to come in 21 as we sort of shelter the storm of 2020.
Yeah, and I think you've hit upon sort of the opportunity word there, and I think we've seen across the sort of the tech, certainly e-commerce sector, that the opportunity that has been there for companies that have found themselves suddenly in huge demand this year, and many have seen their share price rocket accordingly. And I'm just wondering, so Michael first, to what extent has this been an opportunity for you? How much did you think as part of that decision to sort of plow on with the new product that this might actually be a good opportunity for you that you needed to grab?
I think a big element, two parts. One is digital transformation, the speed in which companies have had to or are looking to adopt technology. And off the back of that, they've seen the value and the impact when they've adopted the right technologies and used it in the right way, what that can do from an efficiency point of view, from a revenue point of view, from a growth point of view. So that's kind of one strand. And the other part of it is every good business understands that its most important asset is its people. And where businesses have grown and seen strength is where they've empowered their people, supported their people, and trusted their people. And what we've been able to do with our opportunity is combine both. We want to help organizations to better understand their people's needs, to react in a more real-time and faster way. And potentially without COVID, that would have bbeen just us targeting organizations that were at the head of the time, looking to achieve this, that realize technology can support them. Whereas now the whole world, the whole organizations around us, whether you're small or large, understand that in order to achieve what you want to, there needs to be some form of technology. And I think for tech organizations like ourselves, ultimately, you are a small team, you have to make decisions, but when you move, you have to move quickly and you have to be extremely focused on what you're doing. And that does mean letting certain things burn and knowing that it's okay not to focus on everything. But as long as you stay true to what you're trying to do, I think it gives everybody that opportunity to have a go and try something. I think for us, it gave us an incubator to make very clear-cut decisions on what we wanted to do. We couldn't waffle around and muck around and get from board meeting to board meeting. It was a case of, we need to do this. Do we want to? What's the risks? What's the opportunities? Are we aligned? Let's go. And the speed in which my team moved around me and behind me and in front of me was kind of, it made me smile every day, because one thing that I learned as a young CEO that's learning every single trait possible and making every mistake that you can is that trust in your people and trust in your processes and what you're doing is absolutely key if you want to be able to grow an organization. We can't, as leaders in a young organization, do everything. I suppose if there's any small startups in technology that's listening today and wants some sort of what advice, what top tip would you give, is that you can't do everything, and nor should you, because otherwise the business will wait for you as a person. So it enabled us to really set ourselves up in a way in which we could move quickly, we could measure quickly, and if something wasn't working, then we could pull back. But as I said, people and retaining your talent and attracting new talent is the future of work, and it's always been the previous element of work. But that focus with technology brought that opportunity to me, which I felt that Stribe demanded us to double down, and it would have been a crime for us not to enter into that new market alongside our learnings of the education space.
Sure. And you mentioned people there. Well, certainly, Gabe, I know that 2 of your colleagues actually received MBEs for the work that they've done this year. And I just wondered, how much of was there a sense of opportunity within TalkTalk, and how much was there that communicated from the top, that actually, although your customers had seen a sort of a seismic shift in the way that they needed to work with you? I mean, how much was this an opportunity for TalkTalk?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing that drives, I suppose, the opportunities at the moment and over the last sort of X amount of months is the new way in which the customers have to operate and change and adapt. And that's very much from a technology point of view. I think one of the biggest areas that we probably are working in is the retail sector, and obviously they were hit quite hard. The interesting thing that we see, there's a certain bunch of retailers that and general customers that are ready, and we're quite nimble to move into that journey, whether it be they were quite advanced from an e-commerce point of view, already, for instance, using apps to order and that kind of thing, in the hospitality space. We've also seen a lot of very reactive bids come into us, where from a hospitality point of view, where they're generating an app, they need wireless, they need connectivity, so that when customers can come back in, they can provide a table ordering service and that side of things. Then we've got other customers. One in particular that I'm dealing with, it's again a national retailer, and they're very much looking still at a 5-year plan, and they're very technologically advanced for the type of company that they are. So what we're doing is providing them a network that can sustain what they want to do in terms of all sorts of things around augmented reality, a bit like Pokemon Go. I don't know if you've ever used it, but it's effectively you move it around and you can request a product, and that product basically appears as an augmented reality. So it's all sorts of things like that. But equally, they have had to put in a COVID measure. So we've had to be commercially more flexible, probably, than we have been in the past. We have to be understanding that when customers commit to a certain sized network, that if they're a retailer, there's going to be casualties within that network within the contract period. So we're having to be a lot more flexible from a contractual point of view. And secondly, from a home working point of view, again, we had to come up very quickly with some things around short-term contracts, because people just can't commit to 1,000 employees on a 12-month contract. We have to start looking at kind of shorter 3-month type scenarios. So the opportunities are there to also to bring forward some of the plans that these customers were looking at. So in some cases that we've had some say, we're virtually doing today what we were to accelerate it, to keep up. So absolutely, there are opportunities there. But the one thing I go back to as well is that we're seeing those opportunities right across the board, from SME, Soho, right through to the large enterprise space, which is really good to see, because there's still a thriving SME business within the north, especially. And I think that we're working a lot with some of these smaller companies, a lot of the niche sort of companies, and I think the north is well known for those kind of small and niche companies. And then ultimately, when you look at some of the solutions that are being put together, we're bringing some of these guys in as partners. And then whether it be to develop an app, to provide the iPads into a store for people to order and that kind of thing. So I think the message for me there is that although we are a big national infrastructure, we still work really closely on with some of our sort of partners as well. So it's a really good story, especially from the northern point of view.
Yeah, and I mean, looking ahead to next year, I mean, thankfully, thanks to the genius of some of our scientists, we're able to look at the moment with quite a high degree of optimism, which makes a change for this year. Certainly been some very encouraging news lately, and so I guess there's a hope that things will be returning more to quotes normal during sort of Q2 onwards next year. But I wonder, and there's a question for all three, how we think this crisis will have affected the sector, the tech sector, I guess in the long term. I mean, what are the changes that it has created this year that are going to stay with us? Maybe Tom, do you want to take that one? You're on mute.
I think after, sorry, one of us had to do it. I think picking up on that point about sort of culture eating strategy for breakfast, as the sort of Peter Drucker would have said, we need to get people back together though. Like great foundations of businesses are built around great culture. And I think actually, getting people into cities, engaged, innovating together and getting that kind of for SMEs sharing experience and being in incubators and accelerators, and that the benefits of learning from broader experience and cross-sectoral experience and attending events and networking, a lot of that in a digital world hasn't been the same. And so whilst so many things have been enabled through digital tools like our webinar today, I do think that for next year the kind of reurbanization of some of the population will really help kind of recatalyze SME growth. And I think if there's been now potentially more people thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, a founder like Michael, then I hope that they get out and network next year and seek that opportunity, because there's probably a bit of a bottleneck in terms of their engagement with other people that could help them. And I guess my hope is that we haven't put the brakes too much on the great northern tech growth story that's really been something that's grown over the last 8-10 years significantly. To be the leading kind of city in Manchester in Europe from a technology growth point of view. The closure of the international world has meant that we will have surely been constrained to a bit of talent and a bit of growth that we could have otherwise expected. So let's hope for quick recovery.
Yeah. And just before I come on to you, Michael, if anyone out there would like to ask any question, got any question they'd like to ask of any of the panel, then please do type away in the chat box there. So yeah, Michael, what are your thoughts on this one?
I suppose one's a bit of kind of sense check for organizations of our sort of size, where it can be quite volatile, and the other is sort of the future. I think cash is king, regardless of the size of the organization. You can dress that up, you can dress that down, but as a co-founder, as a leadership team, as long as you have runway and you're aware of that runway, you can make strategic decisions, you can move, you can be nimble, you can pivot. If you aren't managing your cash flow in the right way, then you will run out, and that's what runs out of fuel. So for me, it's about how we buy the time, David, back to your point of it could be Q2, it could be Q3. And so how do we get there and look after our people and just keep the right things happening and not become too volatile, because that's what will change the behavior. And for me, it's one thing I've listened to my co-founder Kieran and my head of marketing Lucy, who are brilliant brains. Product market fit. I think anybody can create a technological package or a solution, but if you don't work on product market fit, or you don't listen to what your customers' needs are, you will make some sales, but you will not build that recurring revenue. You will not build that customer base. You will not build that advocacy. So I think, regardless of the stage, as Gabriel was saying, adapting the products to suit the new world of working at an organization of 1.6 billion, or someone like myself at the other end that's almost at that point, but not quite. being able to effectively build products that our customers love and advocate off the back. And I think as our customer, as our user are going to become more tech savvy, they're going to be more choosy, more picky, more demanding in what technologies they use, because we've relied for a very long time on an audience to wow with technology that can do something. But we've all felt the different platforms online of presenting or webinars, different elements that we like or we don't like, and that's part of your brand and your culture of getting that right and bringing your customers really into the conversation, whether it's payment terms, whether it's sales, whether it's pilots, whether it's free trials. And you can only do that if you watch the cash flow and build that through. So that would be my 2 thoughts on the future ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. And Gabe, over to you as well, really, just what your thoughts are and for a post-COVID world at TalkTalk.
Yeah, so I think one of the things I think that's come out of this, and this isn't new to my industry, but a lot of industries that have had to employ home working. I think previously there was a lack of trust in a lot of industries. So people will change their view on home working going forward and actually give that trust to their employees, because they've seen how they've been able to cope in this scenario. And for me, that's only a good thing from a work-life balance. People can see their kids coming in and all that various kind of thing from school, which I think is great. I think one of the other things that will change is companies that are doing things now that perhaps they would never have thought of before, and at all sizes as well. So my local pub is a small chain of about 5. They've developed an app with a local supplier. You order at the table when it's open. That is, you order at the table, and actually the experience for me, I loved it. I thought it was great. Not having to go up and stand at a bar and all that kind of thing. So I think there will be a reluctance for some of the services that people are almost using to get by in COVID to take them away, because I think there'll be an expectation. Well, I want that service now when I go into that pub. And then there's other things where I'm seeing companies. There's McCall's is a good example. They're doing around about 200 trial sites with Deliveroo, and again that was born out of COVID. Now, but if somebody, it wouldn't be my demographic, I don't think, to use it, but there's a certain demographic that will use that to order, milk, bread on a sort of daily basis, etc. And again, I think people will get used to those kind of services and will still need them. So I think the main point is we will go back somewhere in between, but I don't think anybody thinks that we're going to go back to where we were pre-COVID. And that links into all sorts of things around the buying habits. And I think one of the stats that we saw in one of the surveys we did was leading up to Christmas, 37% of people will actively look to not be in a retail space physically. So there's a challenge that those retailers have to find. Well, how do I get that 37% to come to me, or a chunk of that 37%? So I think a lot of that won't go away. And we will keep the good things that have come out of COVID.
Yeah, and just linked to that, I guess, Gabe, Victoria Foster's just asked what emerging technologies are impacting the telecoms industry. Is there anything particularly looking ahead to next year that's coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. So 5G will come through in terms of connectivity, which again, from a sort of retail space, not just a retail space, but in many spaces where we've been using sort of 4G at the moment for either backup or quick deployment. So an example, for instance, is we have one of the largest clothing chains in the company as a customer of ours. At the moment, they deploy a bunch of 4G routers, so they always have a horde of them, which for whatever happens in one of the sites, they can quickly deploy it. The difference with the 5G is that the network they've rolled out recently is much more fit for purpose going forward. So it's more of a going away from your ADSL FTTC type services to an uncontended guaranteed bandwidth. So the type of connectivity really that you probably could only get via sort of lease line type services a few years back. But the challenge with that is that things like 4G then have to move on, because 4G can't sustain all the services and applications that they need in store. So therefore, 5G has been obviously developed to be used both on as an internet and a MPLS site connection, and then probably SD-WAN in terms of it's been around a while. It's not been heavily adopted, and I don't think it's been fully understood. So we're doing a lot around SD-WAN at the moment in terms of developing it and getting out to people to actually understand, well, why would you go down the SD-WAN route? So they for me would be the two things that would be coming through, on top of the continued change of connectivity. So fiber to the premise is big at the moment, and but only available in certain areas. So there's a massive rollout to get fiber to the premise out there, and something called, without getting too technical, EOF-TTC. Now that again is the guaranteed connectivity that means that people can run their apps without having a contended service that, you know, in the afternoon is down and then it's up the next day. So they'd be the three call outs, I would say.
Good stuff. Very interesting. Thank you, Gabe, and thank you, Michael, and thank you, Tom, too, for those interesting thoughts. And that sort of concludes the fireside chat part of our webinar this afternoon. So what I'd like to do now is to just move on, before we get to the actual list, is to ask, is to pull out for you some of the high climbers on the list, who you will see in the full 75 tomorrow. But these are some of those who have shot up the list this year. So we've got Performance Horizon, the Newcastle software firm. They're up 8 places to 64. Cloud Technology Solutions, CTS, from Manchester, again, software. They're up 11 to 62. Zoo Digital, over in Sheffield there, they provide subtitling and dubbing services to the TV and movie industry. They're up 6 places to 61. Godel Technologies in Manchester, they actually grew their revenue by 64% last year. Absolutely flying. That's shot them 13 places up to 55. Pharmacy to You in Leeds, they're up 11 places to 43. They made an extra 17.5 million quid last year. Blue Prism in Newton Willows, they're up 12 to 31. They're in the business of robotic process automation, so gradually making sure that none of us need to work again. So it's good luck to them. And Tombola, they're flying too on the online bingo platform, and current sponsors of I'm a Celebrity in Sunderland. They're up 5 places to 29. And finally, with the high climbers there, the Pretty Little Thing, up 7 places to 15. Part of Boohoo, certainly sprung out of Boohoo. They made an extra 200 million quid last year from flogging clothes. So well done to them. And just some interesting locational, geographic trends that I managed to pick out. And I think this is a little bit of a shot in the arm at the moment to the towns out there, certainly, is that 63% of the 75 on the list aren't based in big cities. So I think that's quite interesting. But of the ones that, but of the whole 75, 59% are in the northwest. That's the most productive area at the moment, but 31%, almost a third, over in Yorkshire. So there we go. Just a few little preliminary details before we move into the top 20 itself. So here we go then. Hope everyone's ready. Imaginary drum roll. And so here we go. So I'm going to do the 20 down to 11, and then Tom's going to take over for the top 10. So ebuyer.com, number 20, Buy It Direct at 19, NCC Group 18, KCOM Group 17, Money Supermarket at 16, and then moving on to 15, Auto Trader in Manchester there, Pretty little thing, as I mentioned, up several places to 14. Plusnet from Yorkshire, they're hanging in at 13. Boohoo at 12. And Betfred at 11. So, Tom, I will hand over to you for the top.
Reveal. Thanks. So, yeah, a lot of movement again. Daisy Group climbing up to 10. AO World, what a bumper year they've had on the share price, but maybe not reflected in their rankings, holding flat. Booking.com, well, a brilliant business, but must have been a very challenging year for them. So a slight climb down the ranks to 8, and the Hut Group with their IPO this year, climbing nicely as well. And then TalkTalk, Gabe, you must be very happy to see still featuring in that top 10, and probably see you climbing next year as a result of all the agile work that you've done this year. In fifth stage, coming down slightly. In fourth, the Very Group, who must have had a good year as well, being so online. And then third, Aris. Second, Radius Payment Solutions, and Bet365 just holding on to that top spot for another year.
So well done to Bet365. So that wraps up the top 10. As I said, the full list is on the Prolific North website tomorrow, with numerous other details as well that people can look at their leisure. So it just remains for me then to thank, well, first of all, our sponsor of the webinar today and the full top 75 list. That's Bruntwood SciTech. Thanks, Tom, for your involvement today and for your efforts with our chat and your support generally. Thank you very much indeed, Tom.
You and Prolific North.
Good stuff, and thanks also to Mustard, who were in as ever responsible for making sure that the list itself was fully independent and completely rigorously checked. So thanks again to our friends at Mustard, and that's it. As we come up to the 45-minute mark, I think that's about the limit for webinars these days. So I think that's probably good timing. And thanks once again to Gabe from TalkTalk, to Michael from Tootoot, and to Tom from Bruntwood SciTech. And thanks to all you for taking part out there in the ether and for watching. And we will catch you again soon. Thanks everyone. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.